The wind howled like a warning that evening, carrying sharp raindrops that lashed against the window panes of the small, brick-walled diner on the edge of a quiet Atlanta neighborhood. The neon sign above the door flickered every few seconds, struggling to stay lit under the storm's wrath. Inside, the diner was dimly lit, the warm glow of the overhead bulbs barely reaching the corners of the room. The scent of fried food, old wood, and cheap coffee lingered in the air like a comforting memory. The few remaining customers had trickled out over the last hour, leaving only the clatter of dishes in the kitchen and the faint hum of a jazz tune playing from the jukebox in the corner. Cassandra wiped down a booth near the window, her movements slow but practiced. Her back ached. Years of double shifts and early mornings had worn her body down, but she still moved with grace. Her short salt and pepper curls peeked out from under a hairnet, and a namatag hung crookly from her blouse. She had worked in that diner longer than most folks in the neighborhood had been alive, and she knew every creak in the floor, every flicker of the light bulbs, and every soul who walked through that door until tonight. The door jingled open suddenly, a gust of cold wind rushing in, carrying with it the sound of thunder rumbling somewhere in the distance. Cassandra turned toward the entrance, expecting another late-night regular or a homeless man looking for leftover coffee. Instead, she saw two small children standing just inside the doorway, a girl and a boy. Their clothes were soaked, clinging to their thin bodies, and puddles formed around their shoes. The girl looked about 9 or 10, with tangled hair and eyes too mature for her age. The boy, maybe 5 or 6, clung to her hand tightly, shivering uncontrollably. Cassandra's heart sank. Something about them felt out of place, wrong. They didn't look lost, they looked forgotten. She stepped out from behind the counter, her shoes squeaking against the linoleum floor. "Hey there," she said softly, keeping her voice gentle, maternal. "Y'all okay?" The girl didn't answer at first. She seemed to be measuring Cassandra, deciding whether she was someone safe. Her lips parted slowly. "We just wanted to get warm. We don't have money." Her voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Cassandra looked around. The empty diner. There was no manager here tonight. No one to tell her what rules she had to follow. She gestured toward a booth. "Go on now, sit yourselves down. Let's get you warmed up." The girl hesitated for a second, then nodded, guiding her brother to the booth near the heater. The boy curled into the seat, his small hands cupped around his mouth as he exhaled warm breath onto them. Cassandra disappeared into the kitchen. A few minutes later, she returned with 2 bowls of steaming chicken noodle soup, a basket of fresh biscuits, and 2 napkins. She placed them down without saying a word. The children stared at the food with wide eyes, as if it were a feast prepared just for them. "Eat," she said, folding her arms. "You'll get sick if you don't put something warm in your belly." The girl looked up at her, tears brimming in her eyes. "Why are you helping us?" Cassandra paused, then sat down across from them. "Because someone helped me once when I was little. Because y'all look like you could use a little mercy tonight." The boy began to eat with shaking hands. The girl slowly picked up her spoon. Silence fell over the booth, but it wasn't awkward, it was sacred. Outside, the rain continued to beat against the windows. But inside that small diner, time stood still. For the first time in what must have been days. The children didn't have to run. They didn't have to hide. They didn't have to beg. For a short while, they were just kids having dinner. And Cassandra, the tired waitress with aching feet and a kind soul, sat quietly, watching over them like a guardian they didn't know they needed. As the rain outside began to ease into a steady drizzle, the warmth of the diner wrapped around the children like a soft blanket. The boy had eaten so fast his cheeks were smeared with soup, and Cassandra chuckled softly, sliding a napkin across the table for him to wipe his face. The girl ate slower, more cautiously, as if expecting someone to take the bowl away at any moment. Cassandra noticed this, and her heart ached. She had seen desperation before: lonely drunks, struggling mothers, tired truckers, but nothing pierced her, like the quiet fear in this little girl's eyes. After they had finished the last crumbs of the biscuits, Cassandra returned with 2 warm chocolate chip cookies. She didn't say anything, just placed them on the table and gave them a wink before stepping back behind the counter. The children looked at the cookies as if they were treasure. The boy reached for his first, grinning with pure joy as he bit into it. The girl held hers in both hands, staring at it for a long moment before finally taking a careful bite. She closed her eyes as the chocolate melted in her mouth. For Cassandra, watching them was enough. She didn't need thanks. She didn't need a story. But as she leaned against the counter with a dish towel in hand, she felt something stir inside her, a need to say something, to offer comfort beyond food. She walked back over and crouched beside the booth. "You two got somewhere to go tonight?" she asked gently. The girl hesitated. "We're okay," she said, a little too quickly. Cassandra didn't push. She knew that tone, that wall. She'd built it herself a long time ago. "Well, you're safe here for a while. You can stay till closing if you need," Cassandra offered, standing up again. She started to walk away, but the girl's voice stopped her. "Thank you. For the food, and for not asking too many questions." Cassandra turned and smiled. "Sometimes kindness don't need a reason, baby girl." About 10 minutes passed in quiet peace, before the girl reached into the pocket of her threadbare jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She smoothed it carefully on the table. It was slightly damp and wrinkled. With hesitant hands, she slid it across the table toward Cassandra. The waitress picked it up, unsure what to expect. What she saw nearly took her breath away, a child's drawing, crude, innocent, powerful. It showed Cassandra standing behind a counter, wearing her apron, smiling. Above her head was a halo drawn in golden crayon, slightly crooked. Below the drawing, in uneven, shaky letters, were 4 words. "Thank you, angel lady." Cassandra stared at it for a long moment, her throat tightening. She looked up and met the girl's eyes, full of something heavy and unspeakable. "I drew it," the girl said quietly, "in case we met someone nice." Cassandra folded the paper carefully and pressed it to her chest. She didn't trust her voice enough to speak. She just nodded, blinked hard, and walked back to her locker in the back room. She placed the drawing inside, next to a faded photo of her mother and a silver locket she never wore anymore. Somehow, this piece of paper, this small gift, meant more than anything else she'd kept. When she returned to the front, the booth was empty. The children were gone. No doorbell had rung, no goodbye. Just 2 empty bowls and the lingering scent of biscuits. And rain. Cassandra rushed outside, scanning the streets. But there was no sign of them, only puddles and distant headlights disappearing around the corner. She stood in the doorway, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, staring into the night as a sense of quiet loss settled over her. Years passed. Like pages in a forgotten book, 15 winters came and went. Cassandra retired from the diner quietly, without fuss or farewell party. The building was sold, the counter replaced, the jukebox removed, the world moved on. She settled into a small, weathered house on the outskirts of town, a few faded photos. Decorating the mantel, an old recliner in the corner, and shelves filled with books she never finished reading. Her days were slow but peaceful. Her hands ached more, and the steps felt heavier, but her spirit never lost its warmth. Then one spring morning, as she was making herself a cup of tea, she heard a knock at the front door that wasn't loud, just a few soft taps. She wasn't expecting anyone. Her neighbors usually called first. She set down her cup and walked slowly to the door. Curious, when she opened it, her breath caught in her throat. A sleek, black luxury SUV was parked in her driveway, gleaming under the soft sunlight. Standing in front of her was a tall young man, in a crisp suit, holding a bouquet of lilac and a white envelope. His hair was neat, his jaw strong, and his eyes, those eyes, deep brown, gentle, familiar. "Miss Cassandra?" he said, voice warm and steady. "You may not remember me, but I never forgot you." Cassandra stared at the young man as if he were a ghost from a life she barely remembered. Her hand trembled as she leaned against the doorframe for balance. The lilac in his hand gave off a sweet, comforting scent that somehow made her feel more emotional, more exposed. He extended them slowly, carefully, as if he didn't want to startle her. You gave us soup, he said gently. And cookies. And a place to be safe when the world had forgotten us. That night saved our lives. Asterisk Cassandra's. Lips parted, but no words came. Her eyes darted between the stranger's face and the SUV, her mind racing to catch up. Her voice, when it came, was quiet and disbelieving. Asterisk Noah? Asterisk, he smiled. Yes, ma'am. And my sister, her name's Lila, she's not far. She insisted on baking you something herself. She still remembers the biscuits you wrapped for us. Asterisk Cassandra stepped back without thinking and motioned for him to come in. Noah wiped his feet politely and stepped inside, his eyes scanning the room, taking in the warmth, the books, the lace curtains, the quiet pride of someone who had lived a humble but dignified life. Asterisk, she sat down slowly in her recliner, hands gripping the armrests. I thought about you both, for years. Always wondered if you were okay. I never forgot that night. Asterisk Noah sat on the edge of the couch, not too close, giving her space. He opened the envelope and handed her a folded document. She took it with shaky hands and unfolded it. Her eyes widened as she read the words, Deed of Ownership, Mortgage Paid. In full, transfer of title. Asterisk, this house, Noah said softly, is now yours, forever. No rent, no bills, no worries, it's all covered. Asterisk, she blinked rapidly. I don't understand, why would you? Asterisk, because you gave us something no one else would. Dignity, Noah interrupted, his voice thick with emotion. You saw us not as beggars or burdens, but as children. You didn't just feed our stomachs, you fed our hope. Asterisk, her eyes brimmed with tears as she shook her head slowly. It was just soup. Just a warm seat. It was everything, he said. The next few minutes passed in soft conversation, memories shared, stories exchanged. Cassandra learned that Lila had gone on to become a social worker, working with runaway and abandoned children. Noah had built a tech startup from a homeless shelter, piece by piece, coding on borrowed library computers until one small idea turned into a successful business. They had made a pact all those years ago that if they ever made it out, they would go back for the angel lady. Asterisk, when Lila arrived later that afternoon, she ran into Cassandra's arms, crying openly, the way a daughter might after years, apart from a mother. She brought a basket of homemade biscuits, wrapped in a familiar white napkin, just like the one Cassandra had given her as a child. It was a quiet, tearful reunion filled with laughter, trembling voices, and long embraces. Asterisk over. The weeks that followed, Cassandra's world transformed. Asterisk Noah and Layla came by every Sunday. They stocked her kitchen with groceries, repaired the cracked porch step, brought her books, new curtains, and small gifts that showed they had paid attention to everything she once lacked. Her home was filled with warmth and sound again, no longer a place of quiet passing time, but one of shared meals, card games, photo albums, and stories told long into the night. Asterisk, in the living room above the mantel, they had a custom frame made for the old drawing, now restored and protected. Behind glass, Angel Lady was written proudly at the bottom. Every visitor who came through her door saw it first, and every time Cassandra looked at it, she felt the weight of time, the echo of kindness, and the mystery of how one small act could ripple through so many lives. Asterisk, on her birthday, they surprised her with a small gathering. Neighbors came, old co-workers too. Leela made a speech. Noah lifted a glass. And Cassandra, sitting quietly in her armchair, smiled through tears as she looked around the room. She never had children of her own, but in those two she once fed, she found a family. Asterisk, and as the evening sun poured in through the windows and cast golden light over the drawing above the fireplace, Cassandra closed her eyes for a moment and whispered to herself, one night, one meal, one choice, that's all it takes. Asterisk, and she knew in her heart that she had never been forgotten.